Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, email mayhem. Also, the V-Team takes a look at who paid Perio, and Governor Ivey's top men have secrets.
The cone of silence. I am deeply concerned about the conference room.
What?
I'm concerned about the conference room.
How's that?
He's concerned about the conference room.
Oh.
A joker, a jokester, and, sorry, the joke's on you. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome.
Hi.
Oh, morning.
Well, it is over. Thank God this day has come. They have gone home.
The long national nightmare has ended.
It's finally dead.
You know,
But are they going home?
it looks like napalm hit the parking lots out here. They couldn't get out of here fast enough.
At least nobody was severely injured or killed during the process.
Well, that we
They
know.
got close.
Very close, yeah. One of the things before we get into the legislative agenda, we had a report this week that I did, and Josh, you followed up on it. In 2015, then Lieutenant Governor Kay Ivey was hospitalized in Colorado, we understand, for having stroke-like symptoms, perhaps TIAs. That was covered up according to high-ranking officials, former officials, and also troopers, and it was covered up by her Chief of Staff, Steve Pelham. We have also been told by those close to Kay Ivey that she does have bouts of ill health. We asked, pointedly, 2 hours and 40 minutes before we published the story, has Governor Kay Ivey had any strokes or any hospitalization or any stroke-like symptoms or hospitalization since 2015? It's been 4 days, Josh, we haven't heard a word.
Yeah, you know, I think that first of all, you know, there's some debate, I guess, among people about, you know, what we need to know and what we don't need to know about somebody. And you know, this is the person that is the governor. And so you need to know, you know, what, not necessarily all of her illnesses. You don't need to get into all of her personal information, but something like this, if they went to the lengths to kind of cover it up, you just kind of go back to Robert Bentley. You know, Robert Bentley, as he was governor, had an incident where he had to go stay overnight for a heart procedure here, and everybody in the state reported that because that's something that the general public needs to know about, and this is the same way here. And the way they're kind of running from it, you know, and if you've noticed, they've never answered the question about, you know, this incident in 2015 because they know it's true. And I mean, the sources on that were as good as you can get. And also the things since then and what the health is now. And there are too many people, and you know they've heard the speculation. You know they've heard the talk. There are too many people who talk about her health and have questions about her health for there not to be some answer coming from that office, some definitive answer. And I'll admit, I don't know what that answer could be if it's bad. But to sit on it like they have does not do them any favors.
And again, we wish that she's in great health.
Sure,
we
yes.
wish
Yes,
that she's in great
absolutely.
health. But the people of Alabama have a right to know if their governor has an illness that may be fatal. Mm-hmm. And listen, Susan, we've watched a lot of small strokes turn into
We
big
have
ones.
with your parents and other people. You know, it starts with many strokes and a lot of times ends up in a massive stroke. And I think this is something that Alabamians need to be prepared for. God forbid it would happen, of course. But, you know, this is our top leader here. in the state, and it's important, I think, that the people know, have some idea of what her health is and what we can expect with her health.
Our understanding, and I want to move off this, is that Steve Pelham, her chief of staff, who allegedly hid this information and got rid of the security guard who reported it. They moved him out to a licensed driving office, and Brian Taylor, who is one of Bob Riley's little boys, are the ones advising her to not answer this question. And listen, Steve Pelham has moved in next door to her office. No chief of staff that we know of in recent history ever lived right next to the governor.
Well, one of them lived in the governor's office most of the time. But,
different circumstances.
Yeah, well, we hope that Governor Ivey has better taste.
Right. No, certainly. But, I think the bigger point is it's not just about her health. It's also about, her mental capacity and things like that. And you want to make sure that everything is okay because, I didn't vote for Steve Pelham. I mean, I didn't vote for any of these people, but, I didn't vote for Pelham. No one voted for Pelham. No one voted for Brian Taylor.
No.
Right.
So, that's the thing that you have to worry about, and that's the thing I think that is the concern for people is who's leading the state and making sure that Kay Ivey is okay, because I think a lot of people did vote for her and they do have faith in her leadership, but not necessarily the people under her.
Well, the fact that they're not talking to us, Chip, always makes us suspect. We gave them 2 hours, 40 minutes to answer a simple question. Have you or have you not?
Yeah, and like you said, they haven't answered the question of whether those mini strokes happened in 2015. We pretty much know that they did. They haven't addressed that. What they are saying is that she's healthy now, that she's ready to lead. She says she's as healthy as she's ever been. But, I don't know about her teenage years, but I guess we don't want to get into that.
Yeah, well, we don't want to go back that far.
But, we don't know exactly what the situation is.
We hope that's true.
Absolutely.
But we would like for them to answer the questions from our report, which they haven't done.
And, when Governor Bentley had the problems earlier this year, his press office was putting out notices about it. We know we had comments from his doctors.
Yeah.
We haven't heard anything from her doctors saying she's in good health.
And I doubt we will. There was quite a bit of mayhem over an insensitive at best email, Chip.
At best.
Ooh, that was understatement.
I think that might be the
racist.
understatement of the year.
It wasn't racist.
Okay, so
just conservative.
Greer.
I'm kidding.
We only got 2 minutes. Representative Lynn Greer sent out an email referring to monkeys and how to train monkeys and all that, basically an old study or an old riff. Susan, it was wholly inappropriate. He says it was not racist, but the Black Caucus didn't take it that way.
Well, I mean, to do this, they're in the middle of the redistricting bill. They're in the middle of the Confederate Monument Bill. And to send an email like that, even if it was a joke or lighthearted or whatever, was a bad idea.
Somebody said to me that it was like throwing gas on a fire, and I said, no, that was like throwing jet fuel on a fire, because you're in the middle of all these racially charged issues right now.
Exactly.
With redistricting, Birmingham. Are they gerrymandering districts based off race and monuments? I mean, and in his defense, he forwarded it from a constituent, but,
You don't have to do that. I mean, really. He didn't fall down and the email popped out to everybody, okay? That didn't happen, all right? That didn't just happen. And so, I mean...
You have to click the button.
Yeah, the idea of this is just so... it's so dumb. It's so silly. It's such a silly thing for somebody to have done, and it's hurtful for people. And so, you understand the problems there. And it's like... it's just kind of a slow build of these things. The monuments bill, the redistricting stuff, and it's just a bite here and a bite there and a knock on them. And by the time you get to this right here, people are ready to explode over this stuff because it's not just this. It's a whole history of things.
Yes.
Right, and there's other bills.
Right.
There's other bills on the calendar as well that had racially charged issues, like the death sentence bill and a lot of that. So.
I mean, Susan, the thing is, and they've proven this since Mike Hubbard wrote Storming the State House. They turned this state, they said, okay, we're going to make Republicans all white and Democrats all black. I mean, we only got about 5 seconds, but that was their game plan.
And they've pretty much succeeded at doing that.
Yeah.
Well, it's a terrible way to do business. It's a terrible way to run a state.
Agreed.
Lynn Greer has apologized, but I don't know that that's enough.
Just found out I'm black.
Yeah, anyway. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back with more news and analysis. back to the V, the voice of Alabama politics. I want to get on to redistricting. That, again, we talked a little bit about that. I mean, that has been the most contentious fight I think we've seen in years. It's going to the courts anyway, no matter what they did over the last several days.
Yeah, and, you know, we were talking about racially charged, and I think this is what it was because, you know, the holdup was over Jefferson County. They were mad because the Democrats were mad because the split right now is 10-8 Republican to Democrat, which is way out of whack if you look at the way they vote. The new redistricting plan would have knocked that down to 9-8, but that's still a Republican majority in a local delegation that gets to decide a lot of things for that county. And the Democrats were just saying, hey, look, we want, you know, to have control over our county delegation because our county always votes Democratic.
Yeah.
And they, you know, had all of these Republicans drawn in from all the way out in Walker, Jasper County, drawn into Jefferson County to give that Republican leeway.
Susan, they don't want to give the representation that the county deserves because they don't want to lose the power of Birmingham.
They do. And Birmingham is a very powerful part of the state, and it's wholly Democratic, has been that way forever and a day. And I think they were right to try to fight for their ground there.
Josh, the only solution is the federal courts come back and say, look, because they said you can't base it on race. You can base it on politics, but not on race.
Yeah, and you know they've tried to combine those two things,
Right.
and it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier about their plan to make all Democrats black and all Republicans white, and so that's kind of how they've tried to draw up Birmingham and talk about how there are more whites than blacks in Birmingham, and I guess they're assuming that all white people are going to vote Republican for them.
No.
Now, I understand the majority of white people probably will, but that's just not the way it is. And if you take a look at that map and you see how that one little district just kind of leaks into Jefferson County there to give them that advantage, it's nonsense. I mean, it's complete they've done it completely to get the advantage, and so it's going to have to go back to the federal courts. But it was always going to have to go back to the federal court anyways for them to approve.
Well, listen, I mean, they can gerrymander on politics, but they cannot on race. So that's what it's going to come down to. And Josh, you called it, and I'll say that Perry Hooper press conference was the most cooked up thing I've ever seen. It was an embarrassment. The guy should just go hide in a hole after that.
I don't even know what that was. I said on Twitter, Perry has always been impossibly nice to me whenever I've dealt with him and professional. And so I don't, there's no personal thing with Perry.
No,
that
I love Perry as a person.
I mean, that was, he was 2 weeks after he wrote a letter to all the Republicans saying, talking about how awful, McConnell was and the establishment and Luther Strange. And, it was such a sellout to this. And that's all it was a sellout. And as soon as anyone questioned him about anything, it all fell apart. I mean, he contradicted himself at least 100 times in the thing, and it was just ridiculous.
Susan, he said he didn't even know really about the Bentley Luther, the investigation.
Yeah, he wasn't familiar with the details of that. And then when they asked him about Luther's previous job as lobbying in D.C., well, he said, I don't know the details, but he knows his way around Washington, which is not exactly what people in Alabama want to hear. And that screams D.C. insider.
And that wasn't his tune coming up to this point either.
No.
He would have never said that, a month ago when he was trying to get, the appointment to the Senate seat.
Right.
So his whole tune has changed, and it was a remarkable transition.
I wonder what changed it.
Well, I don't know.
What changed it.
Survey says
Money.
Ding, 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 ding.
Answer to all of your questions.
The other
Always in
thing
Montgomery.
is he's been going around saying that Rick Dearborn, who works for the Trump administration, has offered him an ambassadorship if they would support Luther Strange. Where was that to?
I believe it was to Cuba.
Right. We don't have a Cuban ambassador. We don't have diplomatic ties, official ties.
You think somebody
to
was just messing with him? I'll tell you what, Perry, we'll give it to you to Cuba. How about that?
Perry Hooper couldn't last
You can bring back the cigar.
3 hours in Cuba.
You can bring back the cigars,
the
man.
sun would be too much. It'd overpower the tanning bed. But I mean, I like Perry. He's a nice guy, but he's never seen a deal that he wouldn't take.
No.
Sad but true.
Sad exclamation point.
Yes.
All caps.
Enter the clowns. I mean,
Here
Ed
we go.
Henry did one that actually topped, I think, Perry Hooper's, because he came out and said that Luther left just as they were going to impeach him in the House, and that Matt Hart's a criminal, and this and that. I mean, Susan, have we ever heard about any impeachment of Luther Strange?
There has never been a drivel of any of that about Luther Strange being impeached. That's the most preposterous thing.
Really get him to impeach Bentley. I mean, really.
Yeah.
It took him months to get him to impeach Bentley. And so that whole thing, I was saying, what are you talking about, man? I mean, what was he talking about?
I don't know, and he dramatically tore up his thing, his filings, he tore them up.
You know,
Sorry.
I've never, and this wasn't off the record, so I can say this, but, you know, I've always had good personal interactions with Ed. He's always been really nice to me, but, you know, one time he told me about how he took pleasure in the governor's pain and all this kind of stuff, and I just, you know, it's just very, very odd, very, very interesting man.
Ed Henry has always been nice to us as well. Well, there was a period of time where he wasn't. But anyway, he's also going around, he and Mike Ball are going around and accusing Matt Hart of a lot of things that they need to be a little careful about. They're starting to get to where they're impugning his...
Well, what they're saying, Susan, is that he leaked grand jury information, which was proven in court. He did not.
Judge Walker said no.
They're saying that he did other illegal things that were already ruled on by Judge Walker. I mean, they are dangerously, the only reason they haven't been sued is because he's a prosecutor. You know, and the other thing we know, we learned last week, I don't think we brought it up, that grand jury in Lee County is still in panel. We heard that Hart and his folks have been down there a little bit. I have no idea what that means.
I've got a list of what it could mean.
Yeah.
I've got a few names on that list.
Yeah, there's a few out there. But I think this thing with Ball running around, and McCutcheon leaving him, Speaker McCutcheon leaving him as the head of the Ethics Commission or Ethics Chair in the House is ridiculous.
Especially when he takes ethics so lightly, apparently.
This guy has the ethics of a Bangkok brothel owner. Did I say that?
You did. It actually came out of your mouth.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend guys that own brothels in Bangkok. I'm sorry. I apologize. Well, we're going to have to leave it right there.
I guess a good place.
One night in Bangkok will make a strong man tremble.
Yeah.
All right, you're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back. More news and analysis. Having a ball. Back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Susan, we saw hubris on display. We saw some humility on display. We saw anger and rancor on display. One of the few things that we saw during this session was courage. They did not drop the ethics bill. They wouldn't allow a lottery bill to come up. I mean, they pandered. They had all kinds of pander bills, but they would not let things that are important to Alabama people, like the ethics laws and a lottery, voting it up or down. They didn't do that. They wouldn't let it come up.
It never even crossed anybody's lips this session, even though it's been crossing. Been actively discussed over the last couple of sessions. It was radio silence completely this time. I know that they're going into a political race this coming year, but geez, guys, come on, at least tighten up the ethics laws so that we know going into this new race what people can and cannot do, what they can accept and what they can't accept. Just tighten them up. That's all we're asking here.
Right, but I mean, Chip, if they have some of the big power brokers have their way, Hubbard would be the last person ever convicted under the ethics laws.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they're hearing. It sounds like they really want to water them down, and what they need to do, like you said, is clarify them, because Mike Hubbard tried to use a very vague part of the law talking about friendship exemptions and things like that. Are you friends with somebody? Does that count as, an ethics violation? There are a lot of things like that in the ethics laws that need to be cleared up. And like you reported on, there was a bill that would have strengthened the ethics laws in those ways, never even made it to the State House.
It clarified Marsh and Pro Tem Marsh and Speaker Mac McCutcheon. They had agreed to take this bill if it came over from the AG's office. And somehow Steve Marshall couldn't make it, the 2 blocks.
Is it?
What happened, Josh?
Yeah, well,
I mean, Chip could run it in 30 seconds.
Certainly. That's just,
I
that
have
counts as 3 miles.
experience chasing people like Mike Hubbard in black Corvettes.
Oh, I
That's
understand.
true. You have to cross the Capitol lawn to get from the AG's office.
There's
to
a hill.
So,
that's it.
well, that'll show you that every time.
I don't know why that this was such a controversial thing, because it would seem as though they would want to clarify the law. Because when there is a gray area there, that area allows you to be prosecuted as much as it allows you to escape prosecution. Right. So if you clarify that law and you know what not to do, then you don't get busted for things that you thought were okay.
Well, and Susan, we understand that lobbyists and lawyers who had been fighting against this thing, that the Attorney General's team, Matt Hart and that bunch, Andrew Brasher, they met with them. And said, okay,
They met with everybody involved, legislators, lobbyists, statewide officials, and to get everybody's take on what problems they were having with the law, where they were confused, and had tried to implement all of this into this bill and thought they had been quite successful, but yet it got stopped at the AG's door.
Yeah, well, Steve Marshall said he couldn't make it his own bill, so he's rewriting it with Catherine Robertson, one of your favorite columnists.
Yeah, that's exactly who she is. She's a columnist, and so apparently you can get hired to be a legal advisor with that. So,
well, I mean, Kay
Without a law
Ivey,
degree, right?
Who knows?
Yeah, well,
maybe she'd go to work for Kay Ivey.
She could. I mean, she needs some help in the legal area out here.
But as far as rewriting it goes, next year, election year.
It's not going to fly. We're not going to hear about this for another few years.
And forget about the lottery. I mean, just the fact that we see poll after poll after poll. And look, we keep saying it, the Porch Creek are going to own the 2018 election, Susan.
They
got all the money.
And we're going to be watching these elections to see who's taking Porch Creek money and see how they react. Because that's what's going to happen. Because they've got carte blanche to do it right now. Now, the authors of the bill last time wanted to make sure that the contributions from any gambling entities didn't make it into the campaigns. But I'm telling you, if they don't do something in special session this year, they're going to own this state, because they're going to be able to flush all kinds of money into all these campaigns.
Yeah. Well, it's just, look, I like the Porch Creek Indians, but just like the AEA, the BCA, all those, we don't need one entity dictating what happens to the millions of folks in Alabama. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just don't understand at this point why a lottery is such a political liability for people. I mean, if you look at the polling on things, most of the state pretty well supports that. And I would think they would support it, pretty positively in this. I just don't understand why this is now.
I don't even understand why the lottery would even hurt the Indians casinos.
It's not. I mean, if it skimmed off 10% off the top, they'd still be making more money than we can imagine.
Yeah, the type of people that play the lottery are not the type of people always that play gambling, and if they are, they do both.
Well, and one other thing is they don't ever want Milton McGregor to have Birmingham back like it should be.
That's the biggest issue.
There are a lot of complicated issues that go into that, and that fall within the Indian gaming laws and things like that will allow them some different things. So there are some people who are against it who you would think would be for a lottery. But it seems to me the solution for this thing is for everybody to get a little bit of piece of the pie, including all of us in the state, where we continue to argue, about bringing gambling into the state. We already have gambling in the state. We have 3 very large casinos that are raking in about $1 billion a year in profits over there. And so, we didn't get none of that. We get none. We have all of the same problems that people talk about from gambling coming into the state here with the addiction issues and all that stuff and all the things that come with it. But we have none of the programs to support those things because we get no tax dollars from any of it.
Right.
One of the positive things that passed this year was the autism bill, Susan. We had been saying that one of the things that the conservatives of Alabama, Republicans, whatever you want to call them, have shown very little compassion over the years of their tenure, and that is something that should not be outside of any political party's domain. Everyone should show some compassion.
Absolutely.
Did here.
And I want to congratulate Cam Ward. He really championed this bill. Yeah. He championed the Riley Ward bill back a couple of years ago to begin getting us down this road. Now all children, well, Josh is going to stop me on that in a minute. At least more children are going to get access to these therapies, and you know the insurance companies are going to have to pay for it, just like they should.
Chip, it was contentious though.
It was bad, and you know you had Senator Pittman, who was threatening to hold that bill in committee, even though it had passed by a fairly large margin. Threatened to hold it in there. That sent Cam and Watley and Brubaker on the firestorm, threatening to hold up the Senate, which they do not need did not need over redistricting and all that kind of stuff. But eventually it got through, and it got through because there was such a large public outcry over the bill, thanks to social media and people swarming the State House. And it just, I haven't seen anything like that in my time there. So
I can't understand why this was a problem bill to begin with. It saves the state money in the long run by going through this therapy because we don't have to then treat the kids in schools, and so it just doesn't make any sense, and it never made any sense other than companies didn't want to pay for it.
Right. Well, it showed some compassion. The big companies didn't win this time. That's a good thing. We want to thank you for watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.